All right, so you've been looking into geological engineering, huh? Gotta say, of all the fields we've dug into, this one seems like it's got some serious depth, literally.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Yeah.
It's really so much more than just rocks and dirt. It's
Well,
about really understanding the foundation our world is built on.
and from what I'm seeing in these resources you shared, it seems like it's about using that knowledge to deal with some pretty intense challenges.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
talking about putting these massive structures on literally shifting ground, extracting resources responsibly,
Uh-huh.
and like making sure we're not putting ourselves in danger of things like landslides or, earthquakes.
Exactly. And a great example of that is the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Oh, okay.
Most people don't realize that it was actually a geological engineer's understanding of soil mechanics that let them stabilize that tower and keep it from falling over.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
See, this is why I love these deep dives. I'm always learning something new. So let's say someone is, starting their day as a geological engineer. What does that actually look like?
Well, it really depends on their specialization. But
Okay.
let's just say they are working on like a project to build a new skyscraper in a pretty busy city.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a busy construction site, blueprints everywhere.
Exactly. So our engineers day might start by meeting with the architects and construction managers, going over those site plans and discussing, potential geological
Yeah,
concerns.
because you need to make sure that before you even lay a single brick, the ground itself can handle it.
Yeah, 100%. Then they'd probably head out to the site itself, all decked out in their hard hat and safety gear to conduct some field investigations.
So this is where the boots on the ground part of it comes in. What are they looking for out there in the field?
Think of it like a doctor examining a patient,
Yeah.
and in this case, the patient is the Earth. They're looking for signs of potential hazards, like unstable slopes, fault lines, or areas that are prone to flooding. They'll also be taking samples of the soil and rock to analyze back in the lab.
Because what's going on beneath the surface is just as important as what we see on top.
Yeah.
They're using all sorts of high-tech tools out there, right? Like I've read about those ground-penetrating radar systems.
Yeah, exactly. Those are becoming more and more common these days. They can use those to create those images of what's happening underground
Yeah.
without having to dig these massive trenches. And speaking of data, this is where things get really interesting. They'll also be using things like GIS, Geographic Information Systems.
Okay, so we're not just talking about a magnifying glass and a rock hammer anymore. How does GIS fit into all of this?
It's all about visualizing data. Those soil and rock samples that they took earlier? That data gets plugged into the GIS, along with information about the surrounding area, things like elevation changes, water tables, even historical earthquake data.
So they're creating this comprehensive picture of the site, both above and below ground, using technology to connect all these different pieces of information.
That's really amazing. But I imagine this is where the engineering part really comes in, right?
Yeah.
What do they do with all this data?
Well, this is where their expertise in things like soil mechanics and, structural geology really comes in. They use that data to create like models and simulations, basically predicting how that ground will behave with the weight of a skyscraper on it, or like how the water might flow through the soil.
So they're using that deep understanding of the earth to like get ahead of any problems before they even come up. That's so cool.
Exactly. Then they would use those models to inform like how they design that skyscraper's foundation. Maybe they'd recommend like reinforcing the soil or adjusting the depth of the foundation, or they might even suggest just a slightly different location for the building to avoid like a particularly tricky, geological feature. It's like they're playing this high-stakes game of Tetris with the Earth itself. But it's not just about these skyscrapers, right? The stuff you shared mentioned that geological engineers are working on a ton of different projects.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Think about bridges, tunnels, dams,
Yeah.
even offshore oil platforms.
Wow.
Every single project has its own unique set of geological challenges.
Yeah.
Like building a tunnel through a mountain requires like a totally different skill set and knowledge base than, say, designing a system to stop coastal erosion.
Makes sense. So how does someone even prepare for that kind of variety in a career? What's a education path look like for like an aspiring geological engineer?
So a strong like foundation in science and math is a must. Most geological engineers start with a bachelor's degree in geological engineering, but some come from more of a traditional geology background and then specialize later.
Okay.
And get this, their coursework is crazy. We're talking everything from physics and chemistry to things like fluid mechanics and computer modeling.
So they really need to be a jack of all trades in the world of science. But it can't just be about what you learn in a classroom, right? What about getting that hands-on experience?
Yeah, fieldwork is really where all that textbook knowledge comes to life.
Right.
A lot of universities have amazing field programs where students get to work on real projects. They're learning how to use all that high-tech stuff we were talking about
Yeah.
and, getting their hands dirty literally.
I bet those field experiences come with some pretty good stories. Speaking of stories, one of these sources mentioned that geological engineers often end up traveling to some pretty incredible places.
Absolutely. I mean, their office could be a big city or like a remote mountain range.
Wow.
It totally depends on the project. I remember reading about one team that spent months like studying glaciers in the Arctic, trying to understand how climate change was impacting how they move. Now, that's an adventure.
That's what I love about this field. It's such a good mix of, you know, science and problem solving with a little Indiana Jones thrown in there. But let's say someone's gotten the degree, maybe they've been on a few expeditions. What are the career options like? Do most geological engineers just end up working for like those big engineering firms?
Yeah, that's definitely a common path, but it's not the only one. Some work for government agencies like the U.S. Geological Survey. They might be doing research or, monitoring natural hazards or even helping to come up with environmental regulations.
So there are opportunities to work in both the public and private sector.
Exactly. And don't forget about academia. Some geological engineers are really passionate about research and teaching, and they want to inspire the next generation of, earth scientists.
It's amazing how many different career paths there are within just this one field. I imagine that no matter what path they choose, there's always going to be more to learn and new challenges to deal with. What are some of the specializations that geological engineers can go into if they want to really niche down?
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. One path is geotechnical engineering.
Okay.
So those are the engineers who are focused on how earth materials behave in
Mm.
engineering. Think foundations and retaining walls and tunnels. They're experts in understanding how soil and rock are going to behave under pressure, which is super important, for making
Mhm.
sure anything built on or in the earth is going to be stable.
So they're kind of like the guardians of making sure, those skyscrapers don't just fall apart.
Exactly. And then you have like environmental geologists.
Okay.
They're like the front line of protecting our planet. They could be cleaning up, contaminated sites or figuring out how to store hazardous waste safely
Mm.
or even coming up with ways to protect those coastal communities from rising sea levels.
It's pretty amazing how geological engineers work in both the built environment and nature.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Right.
And with, climate change and like resources becoming more scarce, their expertise is even more important now than ever.
Mm.
And speaking of which, one of the things you shared mentioned something about geological engineers using AI
So.
and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it sounds like something right out of a sci-fi movie. Like, how are they using AI in a field that's, so grounded in the physical world?
It all comes down to data. And believe me, geological engineers have a ton of it.
Right.
Think about those GIS maps we talked about, those ones with like all those layers of data. AI can analyze all of that
Yeah.
and look for those patterns and trends that people might miss.
So AI is like their superpowered assistant helping them understand all of this information.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could help predict landslides by looking at rainfall patterns and soil moisture levels and even those tiny shifts in the Earth's surface that satellites pick up. That kind of prediction can, save lives.
That's incredible. Seems like the possibilities are endless with technology changing so fast. But with all this talk about AI and software, does that mean robots will be replacing geological engineers?
It's a question that comes up a lot, and I get it. Technology is a powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it can't replace a human's intuition and problem-solving skills.
At the end of the day, you still need a person who can look at something really complex, interpret it, and make a judgment call.
Exactly. Technology can give you insights and automate stuff, but it's still the geological engineer who connects all the dots and figures out the risks and comes up with creative solutions.
So let's say someone is listening to this and they're thinking, wow, this is really for me. What would you say to them? Where do they even start if they want to be a geological engineer?
Honestly, reach out to people in the field. Most geological engineers love sharing what they know with people who are just starting out.
Networking is so important. It's not always just about what you know, but who you know. Are there like professional organizations that can help people connect?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The American Institute of Professional Geologists is great. They've got networking and student chapters, even mentorship programs.
Those are amazing resources. And I'm sure there's a ton of stuff online too.
Oh, yeah, tons.
Right.
Websites like the U.S. Geological Survey have tons of info about, career paths and even the latest research.
This deep dive has been amazing. We covered so much about what a geological engineer does, the tech they use, and the impact they have on the planet.
It's a field that never sits still. There's always a new challenge or a new discovery. And I think as we realize how much we affect the planet, geological engineers are only going to be more important.
It's the perfect career for someone who loves science and solving problems and who's maybe a little bit adventurous. So if you're looking for a career that'll keep you thinking and let you make a difference, geological engineering could be it. Until next time, keep exploring because you never know what you'll find out there.